Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. In this training movie I will talk about categories and category names. Sometimes I get support questions about the fact that Roboflow or Cumulus is not processing a category correctly, and that is very often related to the fact that special characters are used in a category. Here are a few examples of things that should not be used, and let me explain why. So you can see, for instance, you could type in a slash into a category name, you could type in a comma, you could type in a backslash even, or a colon or a semicolon. Now the problem is, if you're using these kinds of separators, as long as you use Roboflow manually, there is no problem. But as soon as you want to use this in an automation where you might want to communicate this information to the outside world, or import export or that kind of stuff, then these separators can become a problem. Why? Well, first of all, a slash, a backslash and a colon are separators in a folder path or in a category path. And so if you are automating Roboflow maybe to export to a target folder, and the target folder name could be taken from a category, then using a slash could break the process, because you cannot create a folder name with a slash, a colon or a backslash. Same for if you are using a comma. If you look here, for instance, this is the categories field, and you see that when you ask for the categories field in Cumulus, it gives you the values comma separated. But if one of those values has a comma in itself, then there's no way of knowing where does this category name start or where does it end. And so it is bad practice to use these, although they are allowed when you are editing category names. You are allowed to use those. Same for a semicolon. Semicolon by Roboflow is very often used to separate parts of an action script or an inline action. This can cause confusion or problems. So I created a little Roboflow workflow that fixes the problem, that can monitor your categories, and if users add such a value, then Roboflow could replace them. So I created a workflow called watch categories, and watch categories launches a query against the Cumulus categories of a catalog, and as a result gets a list of categories to process. Or you could use a trigger, which means that you're monitoring in Cumulus any changes to a category or any new categories created, and this could create, if you enable a trigger, a Roboflow trigger on that, you could create an event, a trigger for Roboflow, which is actually translated by the Cumulus server into a little XML file, and then you would be monitoring that folder where these XML files go, and then Roboflow would process those categories. But in this example, I just put in a query. What I did is I'm searching for the characters that I don't want in a category. Mind you, a backslash is a special character. You cannot just search for the backslash. You have to, what they call, escape it. So you have to do backslash backslash. So I'm looking here for one of these 5 characters in a category name. And then I made a little workflow that looks at them, that takes a look at them. So I have here slash backslash, I specify them here, and then I can specify what characters I want them replaced with. So I'm replacing them with dashes. I said that my character separator here in these lists is a space, but you could use whatever character. If your space is one of the replaced characters, then you should not use it as a separator in this list. Then you could use piping instruction, an underscore, whatever, to separate these 5 elements. Then in the action script, what I'm doing is I'm picking up the category name. Here I'm picking up the current category name. I'm splitting these two variables here into two arrays. So I have individual elements that I can talk to. And then I'm also saying that I have a variable new cat name equals old cat name. Then I'm processing a split text. Actually what this is, I'm just saying do a loop from 1 to 20. I'm assuming this workflow doesn't have more than 20 separators or characters you want to process. So I just say it's like a for next in a programming language. I just say I do 1 to 20. You could do 1 to 5 since there are only 5, but maybe you want to add some more characters. So that's what I'm doing here. Then I'm testing, I'm picking up the value. And so this is the syntax. From is the name of that little array that I created with the from characters I want to replace. And as you know, an array, you can talk to an array in Roboflow by asking the tag of that instruction, and then you have square brackets, and then you can say the element number. Of course, the element number is dynamic because it's stored in this little counter. It's going to process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first time it says from element 1, I'm picking from element 1. That's also why I have these @ signs surrounding the separator here, because I'm already having a tag instruction inside. So when you nest them, I'm just telling them to execute this after this has been executed. As a result, I have a little text variable search, which is the variable to search for, and I just want to be sure that it's not empty and that I'm not performing a search that might be empty, because that means I'm at the end of my list that I want to process. So I only have element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but remember I'm doing a loop of 20, so that's why I'm doing it like this. Then else, so if it's empty, I exit the loop. I say done. If it's not empty, then I replace the search character with the to character. Remember, I created this little array also from the replace with characters. So I do exactly the same inline instruction to pick up the value of element x, x being the counter, and replacing it. And I'm using the new cat name, which I created before, and replacing it in the same variable. So I loop through all the characters to replace, and then in the end, when everything is replaced, I'm testing if I have a difference between the old name and the new name. If there's no difference, then maybe there was no character in there, which would be probably not correct if you're doing this query, but maybe you remove the query, you just work with triggers, and in that case you might get more categories to process, and some of them might just not contain these characters that you want to remove. So in that case you can just simply this test will save you, will not perform any write instruction in your database. And so here I do the set character, I'm writing back the category name to the process. And so this is what this little script does. And if I have a look in my catalog, I know that these 5 categories are wrong. And so I'm now going to process them. I say start. Show log, and I can see that it's processing the sample catalog and it's finding 5 categories. Then category, the first one it finds is Berlin, and then you can already see if I put up a path or something that simulates a path, I'm saying ... to say, okay, this is the category path, then suddenly this slash seems to be a separator. So that's why we want to fix this in these categories. And so you can see here Berlin with a dash, I said to replace it by a dash. You could also just remove it and replace it by nothing, and that too is of course an option. And then watch category always gives you the opportunity also to search for the records assigned to a category. That's not what we're going to do in this case. And then here another example, category black and white. And so black and white has a comma, so then it was replaced by a dash, and then the backslash is replaced by a dash. And then, as I said, you can replace by whatever you want. A colon is replaced by a dash, and a semicolon is replaced by a dash. And so that's how it is. Here at the end, I configured that it has to email me about the changes, but my email is not enabled in this Roboflow configuration, so that's why it just tells me that it isn't able to send me this mail. Okay, so this is what this workflow does. Very straightforward, very simple, and so that's all there is to it. If you have any questions, let me know, and otherwise I see you in another training movie.